Hey everybody, my name is Jason McDougall and I'm with Next Era Homebuyers, and I'm going to talk to you guys today about how to use Bandit signs effectively. So we use Bandit signs in our business quite a bit and they produce pretty good results. So I'm going to kind of share with you some of the things that we can do to help you guys increase your call ratio on Bandit signs and help you guys make more money on Bandit signs and do it correctly. So let's get rolling. So what's the point of Bandit signs? Why would you use Bandit signs? So Bandit signs are useful for getting the attention of somebody that's in a situation right now. Direct mail is good for like probate or foreclosure or just an absentee owner, but if someone's going through something right now, Bandit signs are the best way to capture that motivated seller, because they're going to see your sign, they're like, man, I'm going through something, I should call this number to try to sell my house. Also, there's more motivation from that, and there's also less competition from other investors, because again, if they're going through something, they're not going to be Googling sell my house fast Dallas. Like, they want a solution to their problem right then and there. So Bandit signs usually have less competition, more motivation, and transactions usually happen really quick. It's not 30 days to close, it's like 10 to 14 days to close when using Bandit signs. So that's kind of an introduction to Bandit signs and why to use them. So your message about Bandit signs needs to be clear and concise. So you can use a handwritten font or handwritten. You can write all these signs out yourself, or you can use pre-printed. It just kind of depends on what you want to do. In my opinion, you want to scale this to where you can do as many Bandit signs as possible to get the most exposure possible, and that's impossible to do if you're handwriting all these signs. So I would suggest buying all your signs pre-printed with your message already placed on them. That way you're not sitting in your living room for 5 hours filling out 50 signs, because you need to put out at least 100, 150 signs every week to be consistent with this and get results. You also want to stay out from the crowd, so you need to get creative. If you just put on your sign, "We buy a house as fast," everybody else does too. So there's nothing unique there about your message to anybody. You're not going to generate a whole lot of calls based off your message if you just put down "We buy houses." So you need to have a unique selling proposition, which means you need to add some sort of value to your sign. So someone calls you because of something that's on your sign, like maybe it says "dependable closing" or "trusted house buyer" or something like that. Something other than "we buy houses fast," because there's a lot of street corners where there'll be your sign and there'll be the sign of somebody else right next to yours, and down the street another sign, and they'll all say the same thing. So stand out from the crowd. I've got a buddy of mine that put Santa on his Bandit sign, and it said "Santa buys houses" during Christmas time, and he got good results with that. So just keep that in mind and try to make it a little bit more different than everybody else's. So your sign size, you've got a couple different options here. You can use a 12 by 18 sign or an 18 by 24 sign. Those are probably the two most standard and common sizes. My preference, go big or go home, right? So use the big sign. You're spending the marketing dollars anyways to print the sign. You're going to spend some money on labor to put the sign out. You might as well put the biggest message you can out there so everybody sees it. If you go with a little smaller sign, yeah, it's cheaper. It's going to save you a little bit of money, but is it going to be as effective as a big old sign in their face? Probably not. So spend a little bit extra money and do it right and go with a bigger sign. That's just my advice. For sign colors, to find what works best, you must test. So always be testing your signs and trying different colors out. I found that yellow signs with a yellow background and black letters work pretty good, and also white signs with blue letters work pretty good. We've tried using white signs with red letters, green letters, and I just found that those two color combinations I talked about work the best. So try those out, but also don't be afraid to try something else out and test it, because it's all like, marketing is about fishing and trying out different lures all the time. If you try one lure and you're getting pretty good results with it, that's great. Keep that one in the book that you're going to keep on using that, but try something different, because you might even get better results if you switch the sign out and switch out your marketing message a little bit and your colors and size and all that stuff. So mounting styles. There's a couple different ways to mount signs. You might have seen those sign staplers where you can smack the sign up on a telephone pole, but most of our telephone poles in Texas are steel, so that's not going to work. So you got two options really. You can use the H stakes, which is basically an H, and you put the sign on it and shove it in the ground, or you can zip tie them to a pole. To zip tie them to a pole, you have to drill some holes in the sign or poke some holes in the sign and wrap that around a pole. So it takes more time and it takes a lot more effort to put it on the pole. Then really the H stake, I think, is the way to go. You can save some money by cutting the stakes in half and buying one and using it for 2 signs. But again, it depends on who's cutting that stake in half. If it's you cutting it in half, it might not be a good use of your time. But if you're paying some guys to put the signs out, the H stake and their labor to cut it might all be included in the price to put it out, and that's probably the way to go. And again, just test things out. Maybe you want the sign up a little higher with a full H stake, or maybe you want it a little bit lower with a half H stake. Test it out and just see what kind of results you get from different options. Hiring a team is going to be very important for success in Bandit signs and putting these out. If you think you're going to go out and put out 150 signs every single week by yourself, you're crazy. That's not sustainable. You're going to do it for a couple weeks and you're going to get burned out. I don't care how determined you are. So it's going to be important to hire people to do this for you if you want to scale it and be consistent with it. And really, with anything in marketing, it's all about scaling up and being consistent with it, and that's how you're going to get results. If you're putting out 25 signs a week, you're not going to get great results. But if you're putting out 150 or 200 signs every single week, you're going to get results and you're going to get deals, and that's what it takes to make this work. So hire people on Craigslist. It's better if you don't know each other. I would not hire your friends to put out Bandit signs for you. And here's why. Because if they get caught by somebody putting the Bandit signs out, they're going to give you up and say that you're the one behind that phone number on the signs, no matter how anonymous you think your phone number is. So in order to save themselves from getting in trouble, they'll give up you. But if you hire somebody on Craigslist that doesn't know who you are and you don't know who they are, just saying, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for them to get in touch with you if stuff goes wrong. That's my suggestion. But with that, if you're hiring people on Craigslist, you're going to hire some sketchy individuals. So when they put these signs out, these people are not putting out signs because they love doing it and they've got something better to do with their time. They're doing it because they're desperate for cash, and this is an easy way for them to get cash for whatever they're going to use it for. So you need to pay them in cash after they put out the signs immediately. When I used to do this and pay people, I would have to meet them at like midnight after they put the signs out on a Friday night and go pay these dudes in cash. So just be prepared for that. It's not going to be like, all right, thanks for putting them out. We'll catch you in the morning and pay you tomorrow morning. That is not going to fly with these people that you're paying to put signs out. You need to pay them on the spot as soon as they're done. And tracking them to make sure they put their signs out, or they're putting your signs out, is going to be important too. There's an app called Simple Crew, and basically what it does is you download this app, you subscribe to it, and you could add team members to this app. So you can get the email addresses of the people on Craigslist that are putting signs out. They've got to have an email address, and they can download this app, and then every time they put a sign out, they'll snap a picture of it with their phone. And what that does, since it's linked to your account, it uploads the picture into the cloud, and it also shows where they're at on a map. So when you look on your phone, you can see that Craigslist guy has put a sign out on the corner of this street section. There's a picture of it, so you know that, hey, he did put a sign out number 1, and he's not reusing the same picture for all these different locations because he can't just upload a picture. It's actually physically taken from the app. So that's a good way to track to make sure that people are putting these signs out. Creating training is going to be important too. So if you don't create training and you just hire somebody randomly off Craigslist to do this and just kind of don't give them any direction, it's not going to go very well. You're going to have to tell them what you want done and how to do it, but you have to be clear and concise. If you type up like a 5-page training manual on how to put out Bandit signs, it's probably not going to work out so well. Especially, again, the kind of people you're hiring off Craigslist are going to be people that don't have, what's a good way to say this? They don't have a whole lot of attention to detail. So just create a 1-page document, tell them how you want the signs put out, give them pictures of how to put the signs out so there's no room for error at all on their part. Putting the signs out on intersections and off-ramps is absolutely the best way to do it, and on-ramps. And again, include pictures of that with your training, that you have a picture of a sign put out at an on-ramp, an off-ramp, and on intersections. I hired some people to put out signs, and I didn't give them any direction at first, and I gave them 100 signs, and they put them out on one road about every 50 feet. And that did 2 things. It made the code enforcement really upset because they were driving down that road and they saw all these signs every 50 feet and they got nasty with me. And then neighbors in these neighborhoods, because they were right on this entrance to neighborhoods every 50 feet, neighbors were getting mad too and saying, pull these signs out of my yard. I'm like, I don't know where they're at. I'm not going to pick them up. So just be careful with that. that you tell people exactly where you want them put out. So you, A, don't make some people mad, and B, so they're effective and you're getting your money's worth out of your signs you can put out. So here's another tip to consider. You may want to consider, I'm not pushing for this is education only, putting your signs out on private property for businesses. There's a couple reasons for that. Number one, you're going to get some hate from a business owner, but is that business owner going to go to the trouble to track you down, find your phone number, and issue you a citation? Probably not. They might get more mad at you than a code enforcement officer will, but the code enforcement officer might be just frustrated with bandit signs, and today is not your lucky day, and he's going to track you down and try to find you, and that might cost you big bucks. It's a cost of doing business if you get fined, but I would say that if you put signs out maybe at a Walmart or a Target or something like that, maybe you get better results and less flack from code enforcement officers. But again, this is just for educational purposes. I'm not telling you to do anything illegal whatsoever. Call forwarding is going to be important too. Back in the day when I started doing this, at first I had things going to my cell phone because I didn't know better, and I found out very quickly that was a bad idea. So I switched it to Google Voice because everybody said Google Voice is totally anonymous, no one will ever be able to find out who you are, you're good to go. Wrong. Google Voice can be subpoenaed by the city, and if they are subpoenaed, they will give up your information about your IP address, the Gmail account that's linked to your Google Voice, the name you registered your Gmail account under. So I don't care how sneaky you think you are, you can get caught. Don't use Google Voice. That's not a great way to do bandit signs and avoid getting caught. I also used CallRail because I wanted to be able to track all these bandit sign calls and record them all and make sure I could track my return on investment in my Propelio system. So I had CallRail for a while, but it's the same problem. CallRail said they wouldn't release any of my information. However, if they were subpoenaed by law enforcement, they will release your information. They'll tell the law enforcement exactly who you are, which could mean your little veil of security that you had there is gone. So I suggest using a burner phone. A burner phone is a term typically used by people that are doing something shady. In this case, you kind of are doing something shady. You're trying to put up bandit signs illegally. So a burner phone could be a Metro PCS phone or a Walmart phone or whatever it is. The key is you pay for cash, you pay for the phone with cash, you pay for the monthly plan with cash, and each time you go pay that monthly bill, you pay cash. You might think it's a pain in the butt to go into Walmart or Metro PCS or wherever to pay your bill in cash each month to keep your burner phone alive, but it's well worth it. When you do it, they're going to ask for your name. You don't have to show your ID to get a phone, so I probably wouldn't give them your real name. And they're going to ask if you want to set up an auto pay to save some money each month, like $5 a month. You don't want to do that, not worth it. Just take the cash payment, take the cash setup and pay it in cash every month. And don't get sloppy with it. If 3 months go by, you're like, I haven't gotten any nasty calls from code enforcement, I could probably just set this up on autopay, or I could set this thing up on CallRail. That's probably when you're going to get caught. So just be careful. Call handling. So when you get these calls, I automatically assume that everybody on the other line is a code enforcement officer trying to get me. If somebody calls you and says, hey, grandma's got a house and she passed away and I inherited the house and it's all boarded up and vacant, I want to sell it fast. Don't just get all excited and think that that's a deal. I would still do some homework on that because who knows where all the vacant houses are that are boarded up and in bad shape. Code enforcement, they know where all of those are. So who's to say they're not trying to get you in like a sting operation or something like that to trap you. If they call in and give you that story that they know where the vacant house is and all that, try to get as much information about the house as possible so you can kind of catch them slipping up. I would ask them, oh really, what happened? When did your grandma pass away? What kind of condition is the house in? How old do you think the roof is? What about the air conditioning system? Is it pier and beam foundation or is it slab foundation? Any electrical problems? Like try to get in the details where they're gonna trip up and say, and then you kind of got an idea that maybe they're trying to get you. And at that point, I would just hang up the phone and just call that a lost lead. I wouldn't risk revealing my identity for a deal that seems kind of sketchy, like someone might be trying to get me. You can call me paranoid, but I think when you're doing this kind of marketing, you've got to be very careful because of the audience that you're dealing with. Also, lots of new investors will call you off your Bandit signs, and they'll ask you the same questions, which will be, what kind of deals do you buy? What's your buying criteria? And when they say that, you can just automatically assume they're very new in the business and have done little to no deals because they're looking to build their buyers list from Bandit signs. If they do that, consider making them a JV partner or a bird dog. You need to come off as kind of an authority figure as far as wholesaling goes and tell them that you know what you're doing, kind of go over some stuff with them, some deals you've done in the past, explain the business a little bit and make them feel comfortable that you know what you're talking about. If you do that, these people will A, bring you deals, and B, you can make money with these guys from their deals that they can't market themselves, or they might have buyers for some of your deals that you can't find because they are focusing on building a buyers list. So those are good relationships to have. Just don't spend a whole lot of time on building those relationships. Wait for them to bring you more opportunities. You don't need to call these guys and follow up with them. Contractors are another phone call you're going to get a whole lot of. And my thought on that is, if there's a contractor calling me off of a Bandit sign, I don't want you working in my house because you're searching hard for work. I really want the guy that has no time and he's bouncing between jobs and he's really busy because he's really good. That's a contractor I'm looking for. If somebody who's like, hey, I do plumbing, I'm looking for work, let me know if you need anything. If you're looking for work, man, it's probably because you suck. So I'm not going to use you. So just ignore the contractors altogether. Play nice with them on the phone. Don't be rude, but don't give it a second thought after they call. So the downfalls of Bandit signs. There's always downfalls to everything, right? Bandit signs are definitely illegal. I don't care where you are in the United States, there's a high chance that wherever you live, the Bandit signs are illegal because you're placing them on public property without permission. You don't have a permit or anything like that to do that. As far as I know, no cities are just cool with you guys doing that. It's hard to track the response rate if these signs are going to a burner phone. Remember, that's why I went to CallRail. I really wanted to be able to track all the incoming calls, record the calls. That way, if I'm out walking around, I don't have to have a pen and paper in my hand. So CallRail was important to me, but it just didn't work with the strategy of Bandit signs. So you have to have them on a burner phone, and it's hard to track the response rate of all these calls and which ones were contractors, which ones were leads. So you kind of got to create a little system for that and get that automated. And again, it's hard to automate the process. You're gonna have to order the signs, you're gonna have to store the signs, you're gonna have to deliver the signs to somebody to put out if you're not gonna put them out yourself, which you shouldn't. And then you have to go meet somebody to pay them at midnight on Friday. So that's really hard to automate and really hard to scale and grow that. Unless you find some guys that are willing to do this for you and house the signs and all that stuff, keep them for you and put them out each week, that's a different story. But in general, it's really hard to automate putting out Bandit signs and to scale it up on a large level. You need to answer all the calls. So you can't have a VA or an admin answering these calls, because remember how I told you everybody is going to be trying to get you? Assume that they are, and assume that if an admin takes that call, they're not going to be as savvy about a code enforcement officer trying to trick them as you are. So they might give up their company name unknowingly, and then there you go. You're kind of in trouble there because they can fine you for all your signs, and some of those fines, at least in Dallas-Fort Worth, get very expensive. So you don't want that. You need to manually input all of your leads into your CRM system. If you're using Propelio or InvestorFuse or whatever you're using, every one of those leads that comes in that's a good lead, you want to be able to track that through your system so you can kind of see your return on investment. You can keep in touch with them if they're not motivated right now. In order to do all that stuff, everything has to be manually inputted. In order to do that, you're going to have to keep a pen and paper with you and write down every lead that comes in that's worthwhile for putting into your system. And that's just hard to do, especially if you're busy doing other stuff with investing. And it takes a lot of signs to get a deal. So I mentioned that if you put out 25 signs a week, you might get a deal, but the chances are against you, especially in a hot market like Dallas-Fort Worth. You've got to put out a lot of signs to get a deal. We put out 150 signs a week, so 600 signs a month, and that generates on average about one deal a month. So just consider that before you start ordering 500 signs. That's going to last you like 3.5 weeks if you want to do this effectively and make money with Bandit signs. So that's all I got on Bandit signs. If you guys have any questions on that, or if you want to talk about wholesaling in general, please feel free to reach out to me. You can go to my website is sellmydfwhouse.com, or holler at me on Facebook, or my phone number is 682-207-8425. Happy to help you all get started. Thanks.